Welcome to Nightlight. Step away from the mainstream and gather around as we enlighten the world and our realities and travel this cosmic journey we call life. Join us as we share with you and provide that beacon that can guide us all to a better way. Explore with us as we examine a metaphysical montage of spiritual insights, covering everything from the mundane to the magical, UFOs to unicorns, and everything in between. This is a time of awakening, of sharing and evolving, of spreading our wings and soaring on the cosmic breath of creation. Come and join with other light-minded spirits as we weave our lights together to seek understanding, enlightenment, and, with a little luck, some wisdom. This is Nightlight, a reminder that you are never alone.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Neon Twilight on Nightlight Radio Network, along with your host, Solaris BlueRaven. It's going to be an interesting evening, and I can't wait to get started because we're going to be going into some interesting material that we have pulled out of Manly P. Hall's book, The Secret Teachings of All Ages, and going to be interesting because it does open some stuff to questions, and in some cases it gives answers, but not really sure whose answers they are. So let's get started, and welcome to your show, Solaris. Good to have you tonight.
Well, thank you, Barbara. It's a pleasure to have you here, too. And good evening, everyone.
Yeah, it's been the... we take turns picking, the sections that we're going to kind of look into and put forth for people on the last Sunday of the month. And I know we're off by a little bit, but this is technically the last Sunday of the month. And it never ceases to amaze me. Now, Manly P. Hall wrote the book about 100 years ago, give or take. And the material... his source material was even older than that, like the Bible and Josephus and all of those guys. But he brings up information that I don't think we've really delved into before. We've all heard about, the Ark of the Covenant, and, they carried it through in their battle towards, going to the Holy Land and everything, to the land that God had promised them. But we haven't really gone into the Ark of the Covenant and wherein it dwelled in all those hundreds of years. And, this was interesting. Did you find yourself a little bit surprised here and there?
I did, yeah. This is very kind of foreign to me, too. It's a different territory. I haven't really researched a whole lot. So it's very interesting to read through it and get their interpolation of information. So, yeah.
Well, I think the one thing that hit me right off the bat was that, again, it's hit me in a number of different places with other people that I've interviewed, in that the Old Testament is such a reflection of Egyptian history and Egyptian mythology that you do begin to wonder who really wrote, the first 5 books of the Bible, and was it really Moses, or was it somebody else that just, they had this wonderful spiritual material and they wanted to put a good author to it so people would pay attention and read it. That's why I love the Old Testament. You don't know really who wrote any of it. Certainly the people whose names are on the books did not write it, because if that was the case, they didn't have time. Most of these people were illiterate, and on top of that, they had to survive within their reality, so they did not have time to write anything. So with
Yeah,
the exception, with the exception of Paul, and he dictated a lot of his stuff. So we're looking at material that has been designated by the Vatican as what do they call it? Inspired writing. And so basically we are asked to take the information and not worry about who actually penned the words. But that's,
exactly.
It's important for me to know who wrote it.
Oh, yeah, well, it seems like it's almost like channeled at this point. So you're right, it seems like a different thread of people writing books or even channeling some of the materials. But I still say, yeah, it could be connected to a lot of mystery school teachings as well. But, yeah, it's interesting how this has been the dictation for many, many moons, insofar as people and their belief systems. And, of course, now, if you look at the church now, they're kind of changing their storyboard a little bit and getting more expanded.
Gosh,
and I mean, it's just really, really ridiculous. And you think about all the people that had been committed to this other formula, right? That has no value, really. It probably doesn't even have any accuracy. And that, to me, is such an insult and such a disrespect to so many people here who have had faith in something and yet were misled by information that was not correct.
Well, I think what we're getting is even religions and the source of their material has to be woke. And so you're taking spiritual channeled material and kind of like with the Urantia book, a lot of this quote unquote inspired writing was channeled. It was channeled to spiritually oriented sages and mystics and masters of time, so to speak. I mean, you can't deny the beauty of it, but then when you get down to some of the aspects of it, like the tabernacle in the wilderness, when I have heard Bible stories, when I've read stuff about the people's journey through the desert and, the 40 years, that they traveled and everything, I knew that they had the Ark of the Covenant with them, and I know it had to go someplace. And apparently they are saying that they would travel for a period of time and then they would stop for a period of time. But when they stopped, they set up the tabernacle in which the Ark of the Covenant was placed. And I was not aware as to how specific the Bible had been as to the size, the shape, the direction of the tabernacle. And when we got into looking through this article as part of Manly P. Hall's book, it was excessive what they put up. I mean, they didn't do it every night. They couldn't possibly have done it every night. But it had certain measurements that had to be exact. The short ends of the tabernacle had to be east-west, and the long ends of the tabernacle had to be north-south. And then the pillars and the curtains and the elaborate, separation of the tabernacle blew me away. And even above and beyond its measurements, they said, at least Manly Paul says, that it was in the center of the tribes of Israel camped around the tabernacle. It was at its very core and very center. And the symbology that went into it was amazing, because I can't remember the number of curtains that they had to have to section off the different parts of it. But these were curtains that were elaborate. It wasn't just canvas. It was curtains that were woven of certain fabrics, and that in part of it they had a candlestick and a brazier to burn stuff, and a table that had a certain number of loaves of bread on it. And everything is symbolic. And I never thought about it that way.
No, I
just
haven't
thought
either.
I thought they pitched a tent and stuck the Ark of the Covenant in it, but the Ark, well, the Ark rested in a part of this tabernacle that was called the Holy of Holies, and nobody could go into it. And in the Bible, one of, I think, Aaron's sons went into the Holy of Holies and was struck dead because he wasn't worthy to be in there. And I know that I believe it was one of Aaron's sons that he snuck a girl in, I think, is what he did, and he was struck dead. I don't know what happened to the girl, but because they weren't worthy, and so there was something going on here. It was. I mean, there wasn't a guard on the door. They all knew that they were not allowed in there, and when he went in, he was struck dead. The other thing that I found fascinating in all this material was the elaborate clothing that the high priest, that was the one that went into the Holy of Holies, that he wore. But when he went into the Holy of Holies, he went in naked, and especially because you had to go in naked in the presence of God without any adornment or anything like that. And they were saying that especially when Solomon's temple was built and it was put to rest there for the last time it was put to rest theoretically, but that the high priest goes in naked and they tie a rope around his foot. In case he is not worthy and struck dead, they can pull him out because they can't go in to get him.
I'm sorry.
I
Doesn't
mean,
that sound weird to you? It's almost like a ritual, like a pagan ritual to some degree.
It's
but you
very
have to ask
pagan.
yourself, what kind of device are we dealing with? Is it technology that's based on some kind of electricity where it's just striking them dead? It's like the frequency so high and intense that it just takes them down?
Well, they took the Ark of the Covenant and they went around Jericho 7 times and blowing horns and all sorts of stuff. And after the 7th time, the walls came tumbling down. So there has to be some form of energy in the Ark of the Covenant. Now,
like a resonator.
I would think. Now, here's the weird stuff. The only person that corresponds to God is the high priest, and among the Ark of the Covenant has 2 seraphim on its cover, on its lid, and between the 2 of them is the place where God is supposed to manifest. Now the head priest, the high mucky muck here, his I don't want to call it a uniform, but his accoutrements are very, very elaborate. And he has, among other things, a breastplate that has 12 stones in it that will light up and glow. And he has 2 onyxes on his shoulders. And if God says yes, one will glow, and if he says no, another one will glow. Again, the element of energetic.
Correct.
The stones on the breastplate are supposed to glow as well. And if you stop and think about it, all of the different colors on the breastplate almost look like batteries, buttons you can push.
Yep. Technology. Yeah.
And so I mean, in the Ark of the Covenant, there are supposedly in the Ark of the Covenant are what's left of the tablets with the 10 Commandments on them, Aaron's staff, and a cup of manna.
Mm-hmm.
Now that would not suggest in any way, shape, or form that there was some form of communication with otherworldly beings. And yet,
Mm-hmm.
it does feel as though the breastplate that the head priest wears, but if he has to go into the Holy of Holies naked, he's not wearing that. So then you wonder, is he talking directly to God, or is it when he's outside the Holy of Holies, but he can't see the Ark of the Covenant then because it's covered with curtains. So I'm a little confused by what the Bible says and what Josephus says. It does appear that there is a form of energy that does emanate from the Ark of the Covenant. They never took those poles out. They stayed in the box to carry it until it was put to rest in the Holy of Holies that Solomon built for it. But the cool thing is, which I felt interesting, that I had, and of course I highlighted, and I don't remember exactly where I highlighted it, but it had something to do about the fact that the 200 years after the building of the Tabernacle, 200 years after, maybe it was after Solomon's temple. All I know is that at some point in time, the stones in the breastplate stopped glowing, stopped radiating, because the Jews had broken the covenant with God, so he was no longer corresponding to them.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I think that was Josephus that said that. But it does, and they talk so much about the symbology of the 12 stones, of the 12 tribes, of the 12 planets. They go into, to my mind, you can find symbology in the way a beer can leaves a circle on a table.
Right.
And
exactly.
It really feels as though they are stretching for so much of this symbology that they've taken away the magic and the mystery. I do believe that during that time there were ascended masters that were here on this planet that were trying to teach and help humanity evolve and evolve. They go into so much drawing reference to all sorts of different things. In one place, that Moses theoretically divided one room into 3 different chambers, into 3 different rooms, and that it corresponded to the first 3 degrees of Freemasonry. And it's kind of like, give me a break. It could represent body, mind, and spirit. It could represent so many different things. So
once again, it's interpretation. Yeah.
And then again, you've got the theory that Moses was actually Akhenaten, and that would explain why so much of the material that is reflected in the Bible comes from Egyptian mythology.
Right. Yeah, that's very true, even right down to the Christ. The Osiris. Yeah,
so
it's very interesting. Yeah, and I agree with you on that one. I think it's just based on the perception of the observer, whoever's decoding the material at the time, when you think about it. But it does seem like a metaphor for various things, when I look at this whole scene. The one thing I do like was when I was reading about the solar system was always regarded as a great temple of initiation, which candidates entered through the gates of birth after threading the tortuous passageways of earthly existence. They finally approached the veil of the great mystery, death, through whose gate they vanished back into the invisible world. That just stands out for me, energetically speaking. I think that's what it boils down to, quite honestly, in the representation of the solar system as well. Miniature representations of the universe, yeah.
Well, and when you stop to think about it, the Magi were astrologers. I mean, you've got astrology throughout all of this material. And,
mystical scientists, basically, yeah.
So it's sort of like, I don't want to diminish it. I don't want to take away from it, but I do feel that it should be more simplistic so you can grasp it and hold it and apply it to your life, not the number of threads that are woven into a curtain. I mean, that's basically saying that. I mean, the amount of time it takes. Well, yeah. I mean, the amount of time it takes to do the weaving of all those curtains is generations.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I mean,
I'm more interested in knowing what the device is about, quite honestly. I don't care about what the other stuff is. That's just me.
I think somebody did at one time take some of the material that in explaining it and created something, especially because of the gold plating, which of course gold is one of the best transmitters of electricity. And they came up with the fact that the Ark of the Covenant, along with the things that the high priest was wearing, did constitute some form of transformer. And if he's getting, a yes and no because of stones glowing on his shoulders, or pushing different gemstones or putting them on his breastplate in a different order, it seems to me that there are electronics going on here, and I don't want to say it's alien. Let's just say it's otherworldly.
Right. Well, what's interesting is the breastplate's one thing, but when you think about it, wouldn't you rather have an interface like with a helmet of some kind? It doesn't make sense to sit there and push buttons on your breast cavity with all these whatever devices or whatever it is. But my thing is, like, I would think that the communication would be telepathic and it would be connected to some kind of a headset or some kind of a helmet. That's just me, though.
Well, and I think, too, what gets to me is that the instructions that they got through communicating with God, to me, did not seem God-like.
Agreed.
Especially when he was asking, saying what he wanted them to honor him with, and it was skins and it was fabrics and it was gold and it was silver and it was, all of these things had a worthly, they had a value, worthly wise.
Right.
But this is God, and God doesn't
exactly.
have a checking account or
starships for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing was that I forget where it was written, but that God didn't even want them to sacrifice animals to him. God wanted them to sacrifice a part of themselves. In other words, I don't know, I'm going to give up Diet Coke, or I'm going to give up beer, or I'm going to, I will sacrifice something in my life to show my reverence and my love for God. That makes more sense.
Right.
But
agreed.
but it was like, I don't know if I can find it, but it was to me so ridiculous how God is telling them what they can what they can bring to him. That's what it's almost like, you give it to the priest and the priest is going to send it to me. How do you know? It
sounds like a Catholic church a little bit, doesn't it? The middleman. I honestly,
oh my God.
It doesn't sound like a creator in any formula. It doesn't sound like any God. So whatever imposter entity it was, in my opinion, I think that's what it was. Whatever they were in communication with wasn't any God, in my opinion.
Well, no, that's what that's where I was going. It was just it was sort of like, I don't understand this. But then the God of the Old Testament is not the God of the New Testament. I guess he retired, and a new God was appointed. I'm not sure how to. Well,
it's too weird. Go ahead.
The God of the Old Testament was a jealous God. He gave them their rules and he punished them, and he was ready to wipe out everybody, and and he was convinced to save people. And it's, to me, it's not the God that Jesus talks about for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So,
it sounds like he's schizophrenic. Yeah, it's definitely something wrong. This is why I was never drawn to that sort of thing with that kind of indoctrination, religious formula, because it never made sense to me. It still doesn't make sense.
Okay, so
the personalities
here's the Lord.
Of the so-called God. Go ahead.
Now you tell me that this is a kind, loving, compassionate God. Then the Lord, this is from Exodus. Then the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak to the children of Israel that they receive an offering for me of every man whose heart giveth it freely. Ye shall take the offering for me. And this is the offering which ye shall take of them: gold and silver and brass and blue silk and purple and scarlet and fine linen and goat's hair and ram skins colored red and the skins of badgers and the wood shittim, oil for the light, spices for anointing oil, and for the perfume of sweet flavor, onyx stones and stories to be set in the ephod and in the breastplate. Also they shall make me a sanctuary, that I may dwell among them, according to all that I show thee. Even so shall ye make the form of the tabernacle and the fashion of all the instruments thereof. Now, he wants all this stuff. He wants a place to live, and he never lives there.
It's no God. I don't know what it is, but they've been had. It's my 2 cents.
I mean, it's just, and
very
yet,
interesting.
And yet, and most of this stuff comes from a foundation of Egyptian theology and history, and it is interwoven into the foundation of Christianity.
Right. Yeah. Well, what if it's just a ritual? What if it's just a representation of a ritual? That's what it sounds like, where you're setting the atmosphere condition for a specific ceremony with intent to create some kind of environmental condition to influence the people attending, but maybe it was just something as simple as that was misrepresented.
Well, I think that at one point, I forget, maybe it was Josephus, I'm not sure who said it, but they said that God never wanted them to sacrifice animals or humans, as for that matter, but people misunderstood. And century after century after century, there have been sacrifices, and in Revelations it talks about not only a temple being erected at the Dome of the Rock, but also that there be sacrifices there. And I think they've got chickens and goats lined up, and I don't think that's the kind of sacrifice that God likes or wants.
Exactly. Yeah, none of it makes sense to me. Like I said, I consider source, creator, source not demanding anything really. It's just we're extensions of creation. So the whole theme seems off to me on so many different levels. But yeah, anything that requests that kind of a sacrifice and blood sacrifice to me is no God.
Sorry, now if you want to get into the inspired words and the inspired works, I'm all for it. What Jesus preached, absolutely, absolutely. But Christianity isn't that anymore either. So
no,
I think that, and don't get me wrong, I'm a religious person. I'm a spiritual person. But when you look at it, if you look at all of this stuff from an educated point of view, you can see the symbology in it to a point. If you look at them carrying the ark before them in their travels, it's very similar to what Akhenaten did when he was at war with a certain, and this is hundreds of years earlier, where he had the ark that he carried with him in war that had the ashes of, I believe, his father in it. And it was called an ark. So I'm wondering if those people who put together the Bible we're grabbing material from all over the place to create a foundation, and that their story that they're weaving in the first 5 chapters for sure are they hold symbology for the foundation of a faith or a group.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if in Genesis, I just don't know if they are trying to explain the Israel's plight, because the New Testament is definitely a testament that has been written for the foundation of Christianity from Paul. But the Old Testament is, I think, trying to give us an idea as to the plight of the Israelites and how they suffered and made their way to create and found the Jewish religion. I don't know, but
mm-hmm.
the more I read about this, the more I began to think, where does religion come from?
Exactly.
And
yeah.
do we need to have everybody has a connection with God. Everybody has a part of God within them.
Mm-hmm.
But do we need to go someplace and have somebody tell me what that God wants of us, or
No.
do we have the right to? Well, I know. You listen and you talk to God yourself. You have a conversation with yourself. You talk. You get inspiration from a spiritual energy that is out there, but it's not a person with a long beard. It's
mm-hmm. Exactly.
It's cosmic consciousness. And
mm-hmm.
it speaks of truth, of justice, of freedom, of love, of compassion, but it doesn't speak of worship.
Exactly. That's ego. Worship is ego. And
right.
That's something that needs to be disintegrated, if you ask me. And once again, I think it's a metaphor. I really do, on a lot of different levels.
Well, it just seems to me that while this material is interesting, and
mm-hmm.
I'm sure that people of the Jewish faith, eat this stuff up because, of course, it's the first 5 books of the Bible: Genesis,
mm-hmm.
Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, whatever. But it just doesn't fit in today's society. And when you look around and you see what's going on in this world, and the churches have been shut down and they are virtual now, and that a lot of them are still virtual, and I think they spoke of how very wise mystics had words that they gave to others that came up along the way that would help people to understand the meaning behind the symbology in all of this. And I think the fact that those words that should not be written down and are only spoken by those who are highly initiated, somewhere along the line the link got broken.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Because there may be words that have a resonance, that have a vibration that would open us to a greater understanding of creation and everything in it.
Right, universal sounding. Well, that leads us to the Halls of Amente again when it comes down to it. I think that's more accurate than this information here.
Well, yeah.
When it comes down to timelessness, it's more appropriate for every timeline. For the illusion of space-time, it's appropriate. This is not. This is very limited. It's almost written out of ego.
Oh, God, yeah. And at one point they were talking about how some of the mystical information came from the survivors of Atlantis, which pulls you into Hermes and the emerald tablets of Thoth, because
mm-hmm.
they were survivors of Atlantis that came to Egypt, that created a dynasty there, and the Halls of Amente and all of that's there, and yet they don't go into that. But they do say that their culture, was founded by survivors of Atlantis. That's in this material that that the Egyptians really were cultivated by the survivors of Atlantis, which would be Thoth, which brings in the Emerald Tablets and the Halls of Amenti, and in none of that material does it call for the ceremony and tradition of all of this stuff.
Exactly. I agree. It's like they misrepresented what they had, little bits of information that they did have, they misrepresented completely. They missed the mark. And it has a lot to do with the initiates, too, sacred mystery school teachings, ancient mystery school teachings, also associated with the Atlantean timeline, but also ancient Egypt. Yeah, I think there was a huge gap there. There was something going on, a disconnect for sure. Misinterpretation of information, yeah.
We go through, and we're talking thousands of years here. But as a culture, as a race, we do have our high points and our low points. If they go into the root races, they've got gold, silver, tin, and then what's the bottom one? It's air. They call it Aryan. It's totally human, like caveman-ish, and we cycle through that time after time after time, so that we lose all of the magic, literally magic, that we had at one point in time. We devolved, and actually we're at the very bottom of another one of those root races now, and in another 1,600 years we'll cross over into a time of a golden age again. But it seems to me that something has been lost in all of this. And when I read this, and I have a little background in the Bible and stuff like that, it just doesn't feel right.
No, it doesn't resonate at all. Yeah.
I seriously, when I think it was me that picked this. When I picked it, I thought we were going to go. Oh, damn. When I picked it, I thought, okay, so the tabernacle and what housed it, and maybe it's going to go into Solomon's temple, which is the last place the Ark of the Covenant was, and it doesn't do any of that. And I was, first of all, I was disappointed, and then I started to sit back and say, well, wait a minute, even their symbology doesn't make sense. To suddenly take the dividing of one of the rooms in the tabernacle into 3 different rooms that represent the first three stages in Freemasonry. Freemasonry wasn't there then. Give me a break.
Exactly. Even if it was mystery school teachings, which the Freemasons have copied to some degree, it still doesn't have any value. Yeah, it doesn't connect well.
Well, their Arch of Enoch goes all, the Ark of Enoch, which is one of the levels of one of the higher stages in Freemasonry. I don't remember if it's the York or the other one, but they go back into the founding of the Temple of Solomon, and so I guess you can say that because they pull some of their material from the building of the Temple of Solomon, they kind of rub up against their different levels in Freemasonry. But this material, to me, there's symbology in the Bible, and then there's symbology, and you go into the number 12, and they list all of the different things that had 12 from the apostles and the prophets and the patriarchs, and it just feels like they're grabbing at straws, trying to make something more mystical, and all they do is complicate it, and you kind of really want to go back and see just what was going on.
Yeah, exactly.
They've written a story, and they've based a religion on it. And
I agree. That's what's so
if
dangerous
they
about
want
it. So many lives have been sacrificed. I mean, people have been living for centuries under a delusional program, if you ask me, when it comes down to the information being inaccurate. It's such a disservice on so many levels. Mythology.
There's so much subterfuge going on here that you've got, at this point you've got religions that are corporate entities instead of spiritual practices and enlightened wisdoms, and you can't take spirituality and make it a religion. It's a way of life. And you want to talk to people who are wise and have learned much from master teachers and stuff like that. But how do you find a master teacher? You can't Google master teachers in my area. You have to. How do you identify one who is a master?
Well, I think part of it is we all are when we start doing our work, but yeah. You dial into the multiverse and just, that's what I do. Just connect to source and all the data appears in one form or another. But yeah, it's just interesting how we've been dealing with this for many, many moons. The misrepresentation of material and information is based on their perception of their own knowledge and their own maybe even fears, and it gets rewritten over and over again, so many things, and you never can get it right. Not speaking of us, but it just seems like they never get it right when they're doing interpretation. I don't care what it is. It just seems like it's always off.
Well, I think that's what bothers me the most. There are so many people that are so genuine, that are trying so hard, and they don't understand that what's been written in a lot of these texts has no application to their lives today.
Exactly. And it's really about the heart center, too. What's in your heart, what's in your state of consciousness. Yeah. That's the key right there, if you ask me.
Well, and compassion and understanding and, there's so many different aspects of the human condition that we work at lifetime after lifetime after lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. And that's not what they talk about here. They give you a set of rules, and if you don't follow them, then you don't get to heaven. And I have family that takes all of this absolutely literally, and they think that I'm not going to be in heaven when they get there because I am not following the same trail that they are, and it's sort of like, come on, the spirit is eternal, and I love that one thing about Socrates. He really believed that death was the final initiation into a better life, and it is.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, it's given to you according to your beliefs, as they always say, and a lot of people who have been completely programmed by the belief system of religion, organized religion, or any other, to what degree they've to what degree they've manifested the reality will be their outcome in a sense. They'll see whatever they want to see, but in my opinion, I don't think it's going to necessarily be real. So that's something to look at as well. I think the scholars and those who have achieved higher consciousness understand that it's a vast multiverse out there with all kinds of data, codes of information, and experiences. And it's not just about sitting there on a cloud in heaven talking to people at a bar in spirit. I think it's way beyond all the spectrum of what people think it is.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
But, I have a pagan background too, and the witchy poo-ness and all this and that, and people are like, they want to persecute and they want to say, but they don't understand. And you know what? I don't judge anybody. I know where I'm at. I know I'm good with consciousness and where I'm heading in my own formula. And I wish everybody else would too while they walk this world.
Well, I think what the human condition, at least when I'm seeing it today, wants to be a group energy. They want to be in a group. They want to follow along with others that are going the right direction. And they don't stop to question. And if you question, sometimes you're going to want to leave the group, and sometimes not. But it's sort of like there's so much. I think we're at a time when there's so much information, it's confusing everybody.
Well, especially if it's all cookie cutter stuff too, and watered down. Yeah.
And so what we're seeing today is I didn't really buy the fact that they were going to try to do this universal religion and universal language and universal everything, this one world everything. I didn't believe they stood a chance. And yet you look around today and you think, well, they do stand a chance. If everybody falls in line, if everybody is controlled by mass media or whatever, it could happen.
Yeah, they're getting derailed. Yeah, it can, because they're being encapsulated into this, what I call the false matrix to some degree. They're not thinking outside the box. They're certainly not connecting to their higher selves, oversoul, superconscious. The independent thought, spiritual consciousness is very, very powerful. And I see, everybody's just kind of cookie cutter falling into that whole little lemming thing. It's unfortunate, but it's happened before. It's happening again. But at the same time, there are always breakaway societies, and then, of course, the mystery schools of old are coming forward again, but they're going black again in the sense of, okay, well, people don't respect what we have to say, so I guess we'll go dark again. And I think that is going to happen at some point. I think that the data, we bring a lot of material and sacredness to our state of consciousness out here with information, and eventually it'll probably, books like that eventually get burned again. So you have to look at it on that level, too. I see it all kind of just repeating itself over and over again, but like we've talked about before, how many cycles do we have to go through? This is stupid. So at some point we have to just break over the scene. That's me anyway. That's the way I am.
Well,
I don't want to keep going on the carousel ride,
I do.
It's too much.
Well, you get seasick. There's that element here of that I'm seeing that people just get so swept away. It's almost like they've talked about herd mentality, and that's what I'm seeing, and
right.
it's like and sometimes things are not good for people, but they stay with the herd anyhow. They don't pay attention to that doesn't work for me. And people people who don't want to be different, but don't want to go along with the herd, are then it's sort of like the blue-eyed, brown-eyed study they did a long time ago in the schools. They had the kids shun one color eye and worship almost the other colored eye, and it was amazing how brutal those that had the power were to those that didn't have it. And it's scary. And when you take away when you take away school, when you take away religion, what do you have left? And I mean, there are many parents out there that are fabulous teachers and are doing a great job with their children. And then there are those that don't. And with society today, you kind of just back off and say, oh, my goodness, what's going on? And when you look at all this material that Manly P. Hall put out there, and some of it is fascinating. Some of it, I mean, this material, I've read through it a couple of times, and all I could think of was, that doesn't work. I mean, if this is what they've said, if this is what the general public thought, that's scary. It's terribly scary. And the element of putting the symbolism into it, you can find symbolism in everything. And it doesn't necessarily mean it was meant to be there. And so, when you get through the records that are out there, like when the Romans, sacked Solomon's temple and took, all of the treasures that they took, among we spoke earlier, among one of the things they took was this huge candlestick, arbor, and I have always thought that had to be a menorah, symbolizing, the oil in the lamp that lasted so long and stuff like that. But it wasn't. It was just a candlestick, a big gold candlestick, and
right.
So that blew me away. That was one of my holy mackerel. I didn't realize that, things, but it's sort of like this whole thing is making me question, the Exodus in and of itself. When you look at the amount of space they were lost in for 40 years, I mean, come on. If you're just following the North Star, you got to get across that territory. You can't be lost for 40 years. You just can't be.
And the thing is, that's generations, 40 years. Think about it. What can happen in 40 years, right?
Well, I think what the Bible says is that he decided that they would wander for 40 years, so the generation that was afraid to take action would have passed away, so he'd have a new generation of people that were more soldier-like that would be able to get out there and conquer the promised land.
Right. When you think about that, though, once again, it could have been a metaphor, theoretically speaking, for just being slept for 40 years. Not necessarily being in that particular environmental condition, but just being slept, non-productive. I mean, that's just me looking at a whole different level. but you never know. I mean, like I said, if everything's a metaphor and if it's all written in a different kind of a formula, then you could look at it on that level as well. It seems dysfunctional to me, to be honest with you.
Oh, of course it is. But you have your mystery. You have your wisdom seekers, the teachers of wisdom, and they're here in every generation, and yet I haven't seen them in this generation. And maybe I'm not looking in the right places.
Oh, the upcoming one? Yeah, I agree. They're not here.
Well, there's in some of the material that I've read lately, they talk about a gathering of the masters, the shining ones, whatever you want to call them. I believe they're interdimensional. I do believe that they are masters of insight and cosmic wisdom. And it's said that many generations ago, the center of spirituality on the planet, and I'm talking maybe hundreds of thousands of years, possibly more, was in the Gobi Desert. And in 2024, they are scheduled to reassemble in the Gobi Desert to see if it's time for them to come again, or if they're going to let the wheel pass by again.
That's interesting. That's supposed to be a huge year, too, for major Earth activities.
Really?
Galactic. Yeah, on a galactic scale. Yeah, there's a lot going to be going on there. So that's interesting that correlation's there. I think that was from one of your guests, wasn't it, that particular bit of information? That was about the Gobi Desert, or no?
Yeah, I think it was Lindsay.
Okay, yeah, sounds familiar.
Yeah, and it's fascinating because the teachers of wisdom that he talks about, I've run across in the O'Brien material and the Shining Ones. I've run across it with the material. I don't know if it's great. I'm not sure who wrote the book, but it's the Morai, and no, that's Easter Island. No, there was a sacred school in I think Italy, and it spoke about how the masters would come and teach the brightest in every tribe, and that they were tall and slender and glowed, and then there were other teachers that were short and itty-bitty, and that for generations they would have these, and they found the stone houses, huts, whatever you want to call them, where they would do the teaching, and then they stopped coming.
Mm-hmm.
So, we haven't had anything where I mean, to my knowledge, there are no shining ones that have entered into the planet and stuff like that. But they were the shining ones were tall and Nordic looking with blonde hair and blue eyes, and their countenance did glow. And in the Bible, when Noah was born, his father thought that his wife had cheated on him with an angel or whatever, and because Noah's face glowed, and he went to his father, I think Methuselah or Enoch, or I can't remember which way it went, but and he was told that no, it was his son, that he just had that countenance. But so the shining ones have cropped up in many different places. So I don't believe that they were space travelers. I do believe they are and were interdimensional travelers.
That's interesting.
And that they came through a portal, and their purpose was to trigger consciousness to go to the next step of evolution. It was to open the consciousness of humanity, and not to teach them anything, but except to how to open the inner portals to get to that place of information within themselves. And to me, that's what a mystical teacher does.
I was going to say, we're doing that here. But I don't say that with arrogance. I'm just saying, yeah, we share wisdom, and enlightenment beings who are enlightened share their wisdom, and other people get it. It's like DNA activation, right? Through osmosis or evolution of spirit. But people get it. It's a chain reaction. And that used to be very popular. I'm not sure, like you were talking about earlier with the generations, if it's really going that way now. But there's definitely that osmosis effect where people start to pick it up. And that comes from inspiration coming from our multidimensional celestial heritage, whatever you want to call it, in my opinion. That's the light language that we represent in a different form.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've been bringing it here all along, all of us. Not everyone, but beings like us who have the data. A lot of good data. Not everything, but,
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
We're obviously here, so there's a reason. It's not.
Yeah, well, but we have. What have you been doing all your life? Most of your life teaching. You're sharing your information. You're educating people on whether it's schools or whether it's spirituality and consciousness. You're putting them on the path of higher consciousness, and that is exactly what the Ascended Master Consciousness does. I mean, that's what we do, or travelers, whatever you want to call us. So, I mean, if you look at us as outside the personality and just look at the soul spirit frequency, absolutely, yeah. Without ego, I say that. It's just about energy and enlightenment.
Well, yeah, and that's what you do, too. That's what you do with your radio shows. You put information out there. Yeah, I mean, your books, and your one on transmutation. Well, yeah, and that's it. And I think I do believe, that as we grow, as we learn, as we put information out there in whatever way, shape, or form, whether it's writing a book or doing a radio show or whatever, we're opening, we're putting philosophies out there that people can touch into, and if they just say, I wonder if, if you can get to the place where, frankly, I always think if I can get somebody, angry or excited or whatever, to the point where they're going to either try to prove me wrong or seek out material that will prove me right. So long as you get them curious enough to start digging, you have absolutely, your job here is done.
I agree.
And it's sort of like, okay, so we have this information, and you do your remote viewing, you do your traveling, you do your whole thing, and you put it out there, and people listen to you because they're curious about where have you been, what have you done, and what have you been involved in. And that's an amazing tool. Your journey is the best teaching tool you've got. If you arrive someplace, that's no big deal. You have to find another mountain. So so it's your journey that is the teaching tool, and Lord knows I've made enough mistakes to teach a lifetime, and maybe that's what my lifetime is too. I don't know. I just know that I'm constantly searching and looking, and sometimes things don't make sense. Sometimes things don't feel like they fit, and when that happens, then it's a back up and try another direction. There have been times that I have had people scheduled for the show, and once I read their book, it was like, I can't promote this. I wish I figured it out beforehand, but it's like, oh my goodness, what have I done? I can't. There's just no way. I mean, if somebody is on the show, you know that I feel that there is a message for them to share. But there have been several books that, people catch me with a wonderful title, and I think, oh, this is going to be just so juicy, I can't wait to read it. And then I get to reading it, and it's, oh my goodness, what have I done? And I just don't do the interview.
I think that's wise. I'm the same way.
I mean, have you ever gotten caught to the point where it's something that you just don't believe in and you can't swallow and you have to do it anyhow?
Although I try to do that ahead of time where I don't have to get into that situation, but there have been a few times where I've had to kind of bow out of situations connected to people, interviewing them. You just have to keep the integrity as best you can. I'm very open-minded, and I'm very open-minded to people's experiences. But you have to look at it on a very high level, and I've done it.
It's sort of like, you have a captive audience. Now, they can always turn you off. That's true. But we're coming up on, we're approaching 500,000 views. So
that's great.
It's a big number.
That's a lot of people.
But it's
that's excellent.
It is. But the show's been on since 2009.
Oh, that's fabulous. Yeah. Oh, wow, that's been a long time, huh? It's amazing.
And it's almost it's almost 1,000 shows.
Wow.
So
that's a lot.
it's 800 and something. I forget what it is, but it's over 800 on Blog Talk. But it's sort of like, people out there are looking for. I think what frustrates me is people out there are looking for somebody that will tell them how to evolve, or well, now your book is wonderful because you give a step by step by step, but they have to work at it. And so many people just want someone to wave a wand over them and say you are evolved.
Even if they were to be plugged into artificial intelligence, they still have to work at it. Calibrating and getting educated. I agree. It's not an easy fix. It's not.
No. I think, there's so many people that I met somebody once who had just finished a workshop, and she introduced herself as a shaman. And I said, really, in what culture are you a shaman? Peruvian, Mexican, whatever. And she said, oh, I'm a shaman. And I said, okay, how long have you studied, and where did you study? Because, there's some really good schools out there. And she said, well, I just took a weekend course, and I'm now a shaman. And I said, how do you know? And she said, well, I have a certificate. And I said, if you're really wise, you will not call yourself a shaman, because every shaman I know of would never say they were a shaman. It's their work that tells other people that they're a shaman. It's not a title that you give. Oh. I often wondered what happened to her.
It's a story, though.
I mean, I have a sister who is a shaman, but she would never call herself one. I mean, that way, and she's in the Peruvian tradition, and she's worked at it for 40, 50 years. But, it's a way of life. It's a study in in being spiritual and teaching by your works, by your, what is it, by the fruit of the tree you'll be known. It's
oh, they know.
How you, oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I know from my own past, even with my background in healing arts, I mean, before I was even involved and initiated into healing arts or trained, I was a healer. So it's kind of like an uncovering for some people, not everybody, but yeah, you're known by the work you do and how you work people, and they see it and they know it and they gravitate towards it. So I think that's with everything. There's that frequency. There's some level of evolution in consciousness, whether it's a healer or a teacher or whatever. I've seen that before. Yeah, there's a lot of that.
And what I have found really fascinating is that while you're on this journey, every now and then you doubt, and if it's a genuine doubt, if it's a really, I want to make sure I'm on the right path and I'm doing the right thing, if it's a sincere and genuine doubt, I would say 100% of the time you get validation within a couple days.
Mm-hmm.
There have been times that it's sort of like, okay, I'm a voice on the radio and I'm doing readings on the radio and all of that, and it's, am I making a difference? Or is this a waste of time? Even though I did it when I was doing the readings on the air, there were always people there for readings, but I didn't know if what I was doing or saying was making a difference. And, I didn't want an award or anything. I just wanted confirmation. And I think the couple of times that I really played I Doubt It with myself, within a day or two I would get a letter from someone and, you saved my life, you did, and it was enough that it was just one person. It was like I said before, if I've just changed one person's mind, my work here is done. But I always got that validation. It wasn't a newspaper article that gave me gold stars or anything like that. It was just a very subtle saying, a single message saying, you really helped me through a tough time, or whatever. But it gave you hope, and I think that people who are on this journey, do have times, have moments when, it's like, oh my God, is this a huge ego trip, or am I doing the right thing? And you'll get validation if it's a genuine concern. If it's you just want to be stroked, probably not. But if you're having one of those moments of crisis, and I don't want to hurt anybody, I want to help people, and I just need to be reminded that somebody hears me. but
they do.
I think. Oh yeah, no, yes, no, I know that. But it's like, it's like, for instance, I think this show that I do with you is very beneficial to people, because we're putting out information that we have experienced personally, and we're sharing, our own insights. And if people don't agree with them, that's okay. And if people do agree with them, they can buy Manly P. Hall's book. And I wouldn't suggest that. I'd say get it online. It's a big, thick book. If you want a good doorstop, it's a great book. But you can get it online. You can read the articles that that we're going through, and it's got a lot of wonderful material in it. It really does. This one particular, all I could think of was, my gosh, the symbology they're drawing on just doesn't. I can't swallow it. And I mean,
exactly.
Josephus was a wonderful reporter, but he was, he worked for the Romans. He was Jewish, but he worked for the Romans, and he put a lot of. He was the foundation for Manly P. Hall's work in a lot of this stuff. Manly P. Hall also, quoted a lot of Blavatsky, and there's a lot of material. There's a lot of her material in this book, but he covered everything. And in this one case, I guess it was. I saw the title and I thought, this is going to be really cool, and I just came away with more questions than anything else. If when the high priest went in to talk to God, he was naked, what was the point of the breastplate and the illumination and all of that stuff?
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, it doesn't
that
add up. And that's why I say it's like theater. It's almost theatrical, like in the ancient Greek ceremony, ritual. But, the witches, we have the sky clad, where you're naked in your own rights. But that idea behind that, it doesn't add up to me. I think it's more ceremonial. It's representation of something. At least it seems that way to me.
Well, there was a long time ago a show in the 50s, late 40s, early 50s, and it was one of the first sitcom. It wasn't sitcom, but it was on every week, and it was called You Were There. And they visited historical events, and they interviewed reporters and people, and one of the events they went into was the assassination of Lincoln, and it was one of my favorite shows because of course it was historically oriented, and I love history. And there is a new show that's coming out within the next couple of months, and it's not you were there, it was I was there. And they're doing the exact same premise. They're going back into historical events, and they're putting you into the middle of the historical event. And,
interesting.
It is. It's going to be very interesting. But it goes back to if you Google "You Were There," you'll see it in the late 40s, early 50s, and it was black and white, and it was a half-hour show. I bet they've got it on YouTube. But
yeah,
it
probably.
was fascinating.
I'll have to look it up.
And this new show
cool.
this new show is exactly the same. And what I'm wondering is, with today's society, with the politics that are going on today, with the black ops that are out there, with the my gosh, the space program that's out there, and all sorts of other things that are going on that the general public doesn't know about, it would be fascinating. I mean,
oh yeah.
I mean, especially the space program, which fascinates me, and it's out there, and it's I thought when they established a space program that the next step was going to be to merge it with a space program that's already out there. But I doubt that. I doubt that will happen now. But
no, I agree. There's so much obfuscated right now, anyway.
Yeah. So, but with that said, the fact that there is a space program out there, who has control of it? It's certainly not our government. Who does have control of that space program?
Well, the Black Space Program, I think it's a global network. I mean, I want to say alphabet agencies if you're talking about the United States of America, but I don't see it as an extraterrestrial influence in any formula. So we're talking about that which oversees military-industrial complex for U.S., but global intelligence networks or some formula connected in the underground. That's what it sounds like, anyway, for me when I look at it.
Well, it's
what do you
just
think?
That while I do believe that there are extraterrestrials out there and around, I think that they aren't as involved in our evolution as people are saying they are. They may be.
Exactly.
But
no, I agree with you.
It feels to me as though we probably do have a base on the moon, possibly even Mars. And yet the general public is kept in the dark. And it is very much like the Matrix series, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it is. So they're two worlds colliding. I mean, they're two worlds that exist simultaneously, and one is much more beneficial than the other, obviously. And yeah, it's really almost as a service, once again, this deception that's been going on when it comes down to advanced technologies versus people who are living in this kind of a false matrix where it's just a lie. We're living in a dream, a world that has no value, really, when you look at it, except for what we put out in our energy.
Well, when you look at science, I firmly believe that there is a cure for cancer, but Big Pharma hasn't put it out there because it's a corporation earning money and they'll lose money. I do believe that there's so much that is being held back from, and not just in the U.S. I mean globally.
Mm-hmm.
So that in many ways we're being held. We're being prevented from expanding our consciousness by the fact that information is being held from us. And
exactly.
I mean, it's heartbreaking, because if science was allowed to put out there what it's discovered and what it's had for years, the technology, electricity, come on, Tesla was going to give us free electricity, and the only reason they stopped him was because they couldn't charge for it. That has been out there for decades. I when I lived in Connecticut, my electric bill was sometimes as much as $500 a month.
Wow, that's ridiculous.
But with Tesla Energy, it would have been free, and it was easy to do. It's not. It wasn't hard to do, and so the powers that be, the organizations that are running the government and influencing the government, are keeping from us a lot of the. My father was in the FBI, and during World War II, he saw a demonstration of a car that would run on water with 2 little pills in it.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. And what happened?
And the patent was bought and destroyed.
Oh, why?
Because of the gas corporations.
Oh, so terrible.
It would have put them out of business. So
yeah.
So there's so much going on that there are inventions that are bought that would be of benefit to humanity as a whole that are kept under cover, and so when you know that kind of stuff is going on, you kind of want to find out what else is being held back from us, and what other information that might make our lives better, richer, happier. It's. I don't think we're asking a lot. I think we just don't want to be held in the dark any longer, and you kind of look at society as it is, and it's still like, just be honest, just put it out there. Our scientists and scientists all over the world have had amazing inventions, and yet they're being prevented from sharing them with the general public.
Exactly.
When you look at even a lot of the doctors that with and I'm going to tippy toe with this one, but a lot of doctors that worked on what was happening with this virus from China were killed because they wanted to warn everybody, and they were prevented. So there is, and it isn't just China. It's the United States for sure as well. And so you sit back and you think, what else are they holding back? What else are they not allowed to share with us? Why are we being kept in the dark? That is I say why an awful lot, but it just doesn't make sense to me.
No, I agree. Well, I think it's all about control. As we've talked about before, it's the idea behind them having the benefits and everyone else living in this false matrix. It's a disservice on so many levels. It's an intimidation thing too. Like I said, if we went through the 0-point energy, free energy, the ether field, and we just negated all these things, these control mechanisms, right down to the religious indoctrination programming, we would be fine. We'd be able to make a light speed jump into a new frontier. They don't want to do that unless it's just their society. And that's what I've seen also, is the possible eradication of so many with this bioweapons tech. That to me is a big concern when it looks, like they just want to eradicate a great amount of people and have a small majority or minority, I guess, at the end, but to sit around and just work with the free energy.
Well, when this whole thing happened, I went back to the Georgia Stones, and it was like, what they said that the population of the world should be, and it felt like it was meant to be a depopulation type thing. but it was hitting everybody, and so I'm more inclined to think this is a virus that got out of hand by accident, and it hit the whole world. So if it was meant to hit a certain level of the population or a certain country or a certain anything, it would have showed up. But this hit everyone. So to me, you can't say that it was one country. It was being developed as a bioweapon, but I don't think they meant to release it. I really don't.
I do. I think they meant to. I think they did it strategically and globally. I think they knew exactly what they were doing. That's just me.
Okay.
and people have the power to make that call. You have to ask who would have made that call. And the only person I can think of would be someone in the Vatican. So could be some others involved.
Yeah. That's another thing that came up in this stuff about the Tabernacle, in that the Pope apparently has the keys to the kingdom, literally. And
that's nice.
and and yet it doesn't feel spiritual to me anymore. And this is just me.
No, you're right.
This is just my opinion, and I don't want anybody to think I'm speaking, in any direction other than this is what I feel, because I have no proof of anything. It's just a feeling. But it just seems to me that they're not looking out for they're supposed to be shepherds, and they're not taking care of their sheep. There's so much starvation in the world. There's so much poverty in the world, and the Vatican has a huge amount of money, and they could be helping people. They could be helping countries. And yet they're playing politics.
Yeah, they are politics. They're corporate politics. Yeah, they're gatekeepers. There's no doubt about it. I mean, they're the ones who are trying to control, and yeah, unfortunate that they have so much access and a great deal of power. Look at the catacombs and all their secret, archives of information that no one will have access to, plus the amount of money they have. So yeah, they're not doing anything beneficial, in my opinion, to anyone or for anyone here. So more about controlling and keeping everybody down, which is going to go away. I mean, this all has to go away. It's non-productive.
Well, where do you see it actually happening? I mean, let's look ahead a decade. What do you see?
Oh gosh,
I
don't know if I'll be here in a decade. But if I look at it like that, we're looking at these big changes coming through, even with the galactic energies coming in. I mean, we're looking at, I think we talked about 2022. This year is a huge year, but of transition and change. But the next few years, I think, will be huge when it comes down to the possibility of reorganizing and going into a whole different space-time configuration. But we have to get everything zeroed out, which means all these corporations under the guise of government and religion need to be completely switched off and shut down. Just like a program, just like a holographic program. All of it has to go. Anything that has that kind of control mechanism and has been a disservice for centuries and centuries has to go, in my opinion. I think it can be done, but it would take a huge movement insofar as people wanting that to change. It's almost like, if you change your thoughts, the world and your whole space-time changes with you. People don't want to change. They want to be slept. And that's the biggest problem. They wonder why there's nothing changing. Oh, why is it always the same? Because they're not willing to go outside the box like we were talking about earlier. Beings like us think in the multiverse. We're part of that. They're not. So when I look at it, I have my own state of being where I know I'm moving to a different space-time. Whether I'm here or not doesn't matter. That is the future if people want to step up into it. But, once again, it's like that ascension process. Ascension happens within. People activate, or can they go to the next level in their psyche? Can you imagine if everybody started to step up to the higher overtones of their own multidimensional blueprint? I mean, it would be phenomenal. We wouldn't have any of this going on here because their consciousness would be so advanced. They would have all the answers. They would have everything connected to how we can work with the free energy and do this and that. But there's always these gatekeepers, and they don't belong. So, that's the biggest problem we're running into. But it can't go like this anymore. So I think it's going to get neutralized. I really do. I think it will be neutralized. And one formula, whether it's with the Earth itself or incoming, something's got to give here.
Well, I have seen. I usually do. A forecast for every new year. I haven't done it yet for this year. And I keep seeing the borders of countries and the borders of states changing.
That's about right. We don't even have a border now, so it's like non-existent,
yes,
apparently.
This is true. This is true. But I'm seeing, I keep thinking the potential here is for a family of man and woman, or man as a species, and it feels to me as though there's going to be a merging, but a peaceful merging, and I don't see it yet, and so that's why I think I stepped back and said, nah, not this year.
Well, I think you should put it out. When you say the merging, are you looking at different countries merging with the United States?
I'm seeing a more of a continent merging.
Very interesting. Okay, yeah, I could see that. Everything's changing,
that people are coming together. They're not being forced together. There's a coming together, and so that there will be. It feels as though like Great Britain will no longer control the different areas that it controls. Great Britain will control England. Period. And so we have North and South America. I see the possibility of North and South America blending together for a solid, continuous union of energies, so that there's not. So that yes, our borders will not be there anymore, but it does feel as though there will also be an understanding that there's I think at one point in time they were trying to merge Mexico and Canada and the United States together. They even had they even had a kind of a money unit that was going to be like they have the euro. So that it was money that could transfer back and forth and up and down, and there wouldn't be a different rate and change and stuff like that. It feels to me as though the continents are almost going to determine the framework of the people that are on that continent. So it's going to be interesting. I don't see war, but I do see, some countries losing their identity, being blended into, and it's not going to be called like the United States and North America and South America. It will be for that energetic. It will have its own name. We will be citizens of a continent instead of a country. I don't think countries are going to survive. I think
you're right. I think you're spot on. You should put it out now. You actually should put that out, since you've already put it out anyway. But you're right. I think you're very accurate for that.
And then after that, I see the plates shifting, and I feel that if we do become one country, if we do become one group, I think the continental plates are going to shift us back into a single landmass, and at that point in time, we will be a one world. But I don't think it's going to be I don't think it's going to be political. I think it's going to be geographical.
That makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah. And as we're dealing with the earth changes too, and so much is happening. Yeah, it makes sense. That line up.
Well, and I'm talking thousands of years here. I'm not talking it's going to happen in the next 10 years. But I think that's where we're headed. And it does feel that one world government is not going to happen. But when it is one world, then everybody's going to have to blend together. Then we're all together in the same landmass. Then there's no separation between one area and another. And at that point, language will come into a one world language, and most probably, spiritually speaking, there will be a one world spiritual focus. Not religion, because I do not think religion is going to survive, but spirituality and spiritual concepts absolutely will.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. Yeah. Well, that's the way it should be, in my opinion. I mean, religion is just a stepping stone to spirituality anyways, any way you look at it.
Oh, yeah, no, it explains what faith is. And you know, when you get to the point where you understand that there's a single source, and that single source is in all of us, and that unites us. And you know, the spirit is what's the important thing, because the spirit is eternal. So spirituality makes sense to understand the travel of the spirit through time in evolution. And you know, individual religions, you know, have their own little stories and have, but they're only. But see, those individual religions have their own stories, but all of their stories and all of the religious stuff and all of the religious stories and philosophies and all of that, they only apply to humans on the earth. They don't have a universal. They don't have a universal flavor.
Exactly.
So that we're very primitive with religion, and when you move into a more spiritual focus and philosophy, you know, now you're talking cosmic stuff. And I think what gets to me the most is all of this stuff that's going on with the different religions, all of, you know, the Bibles and was it Egyptian or was it Israel or was it it doesn't matter. It only applies to humans on the planet Earth at this particular point in time.
Yeah, that's why I like the timeless aspects of consciousness, where none of that factors in.
Yeah, none of it.
We're timeless beings anyway. We're cosmic beings, yeah. So we need to be stepping up into that field.
Yeah, I try to explain to somebody that who is a staunch Catholic. I mean, he's religiously Catholic, and when I was trying to explain how when you go beyond the earth, you're into a universal concept, and he said, well, where's the Trinity? I said, the Trinity doesn't exist. The Trinity applies to this planet, and Catholicism, it doesn't exist anywhere else. And he couldn't wrap his head around it.
Well, that's programming, you know, that's indoctrination.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
that's how
yes,
everybody is. Anybody who's religious is like that. They're not, and it will be given to them according to their beliefs, like I said before, but they should be careful, because that's a fabric they'll see as they exit the earth. In the sense that when they're transferring out, they're going to see the imagery that they believe in, but it's not going to last. It'll be like maybe less than 20 seconds, and then it lights out. So once again, everybody needs to understand this stream of consciousness and how we step up into the galactic neighborhood, and we transmute alchemically our belief systems, and hopefully they'll get that done before they leave. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah. You know, we've had millions and millions of years. Oh, there was a great. You know, you pick up trivia in some places that is just unbelievable, and you sit and you say, "Oh, this I have to remember." I love this. This is so cool. They made a discovery that human DNA changes every, I don't know if it's 16,000 years or whatever. It's a huge amount of millions of years maybe. But they discovered that every certain period of time, human DNA changes. There are alterations. There are you know, mutations and stuff like that. And so they figured out that there was this set time frame where changes happen. And they started to take it back to see where did the human DNA start. Where does it have nowhere else to go? There are no more mutations. It's you know, it's pristine. It's perfect. It's genuine. And they found that it was 900 million years ago. Now, the Earth is, do you know basically how old the Earth is?
Well, in my illusion of space-time, I would say beyond 26 billion, but that's just me. Go ahead. I know.
Well,
People don't want to hear that. Go ahead.
They have computed that the planet Earth is 400 million years old.
Okay.
The human DNA is 900 million years old.
Yep. It's not from here.
Which tells you that our DNA is not from planet Earth.
Correct. Yeah. I don't think their numbers are right, but that's just,
Well, I think
but you're
in
right.
general,
we're not from here. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But this was just science actually proving we're not from here, which is kind of cool.
Oh, it's great. It's a great article. No, I like to see more of that. So what's the problem, everybody? Step up to the galactic neighborhood now.
Well,
we're
yeah,
extraterrestrial.
It's kind of like we came from somewhere, and our DNA was human, was the DNA that we got right now, although mutated grandly through time, but our source, where we came from, is twice as old as the planet that we're living on.
Yeah, we're definitely not from here. Well, if you look at it, too, and I've always had a problem with people saying we're human, we're not human, and I've always said that we have biosuits and star bodies, and the human terminology is generic here on this world. It's what they say here. It's the talk of the town, but that's not what we are. So, yeah, if you look at us as cosmic beings, as descendants of the visitors, so to speak, and which I've written about in Alien Intelligence, yeah, absolutely. And that kind of validates an awful lot for me, too. Nothing new under the sun, but, yeah, that's a nice confirmation.
Yeah, it was, where was it from? It was from a radio show that William Shatner did, and it was William Shatner and Ancient Aliens. And he had a whole bunch of people at the table. He had, Giorgio there, and he had Michael Carter there, and he had David Hatcher there, Childress, and a couple of other, and a scientist, and it was the scientist that brought this forward. And I could be wrong. It could be, she may have been talking billions of years or millions of years, but basically the concept was that our DNA is twice as old as the planet we're living on.
When was this? Is this a recent? It must be recent.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. I think it was the History Channel it was on, but it was William Shatner that was leading the whole discussion, and it was fascinating because they were talking about where do we come from and talking about human DNA and what was going on with it, but that was the one thing I got out of the whole show, and I really have to try to go back and find it because I sat there and I thought, this is what we've all been saying. This is not home.
Right. So it's basically them controlling the narrative. But go ahead. I mean, like I said before, it's old news to beings like us. But yeah. Oh, by the way, yeah, that's what Alien Intelligence is about, my book, and I'm sure we've talked about it before. But if you look at my book, Alien Intelligence, I decode an awful lot of material in there connected to DNA and our celestial heritage. So yeah.
Oh yeah.
So that's nice. Though I'm happy that they're putting it out there like that.
Well, and it's sort of like, I don't know if anybody else caught it, but I was just like, holy mackerel, how can I share this, because it was so profound to me that it was, I've known this all along. Are we star children? Are we made of stardust? Absolutely. And because of that, we have cosmic consciousness, and it's only a matter of looking to find that connection to cosmic consciousness again that takes us out of this particular time frame and puts us into eternity. It's so amazing that it's saying, we are star children. There's no doubt about it. And there was, I forget who did the article, but it was Are You a Star Child? And it went into all of the different things that you could relate to. That I think there were 25 or 30 different things that would tell you that you are that your consciousness is definitely that of a star child. One of it was, being interested in history and feeling like you don't belong, that you're not home, that you belong somewhere else. And there were tons of things. I'll find it and I'll send it to you because it was really cool. Because NASA did this study.
Well, that's interesting.
And
never straight answer. Okay.
Yeah, it was. I have put it someplace where I will not forget it, and of course I've forgotten where I put it. But it's I'll find it. It's in there, and I'll pull it out for you because it's so obvious to everybody, and because people's consciousnesses are becoming activated, they're beginning to sense that and not understand why they feel different or why they feel they don't belong, or why they, and there's so many people that are at that point in time in their lives where they're questioning everything, and they're just, I don't feel right. This doesn't feel right. I don't feel at home. And you're not at home.
That's right. We're not supposed to be here. It's kind of like Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
We're not supposed to be here. We're really not supposed to be here on this, what I call terraform rock called Earth. We're not. We're supposed to be in different configuration.
I think we were meant to move on long ago when something happened.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, it's going to have to go because, like I said, everything's an old paradigm now. It doesn't work anymore. This whole thing about everybody being slept, and it boils down to what we've been discussing initially here with the Manly P. Hall material, how the indoctrination program has been controlling and manipulating thought forms and belief systems to limit their evolution. I mean, this is what's going on, and the same thing with the censorship on a global scale. That limits evolution. It limits education at the highest level of your own divinity unless you do the independent research, and then they'll spoon-feed some data to you from, ancient aliens here and that. That's great and all, but my point is that why didn't they do this years and years and decades ago? We've been talking about this for how many moons, So it is interesting, but we have to go, and we all have to move on. And I'm not saying physically die. We have to move on. We have to step up to the galactic neighborhood. Well, otherwise, everything just gets ridiculous.
Well, I think at present, frankly, I've jokingly said, but I kind of meant it, that we are in quarantine because the planet is still so warlike that we aren't ready to merge into a federation of planets, or to take a Star Trek term, but we're still so warlike, we're still so selfish, and we're still so self-centered that to put us out there with other beings that have gotten to the peaceful, tranquil, loving aspect, they won't let it happen.
Well, I don't agree with that because, like I said before, we're not under quarantine here, but there are handlers that are trying to control, manipulate the mass collective to keep everybody down and dim down, DNA down, everything. It's a controlling factor. But when you look at it, if you change the configuration of space-time, you change the frequency, then everything shifts, and the consciousness gets higher, and the clarity is there. So once again, it's about frequency. Like Nikola Tesla taught us, modulation of waves, frequency, vibrational fields. And when you calibrate correctly, we don't have any of this stuff. So in my opinion, no, we're not trapped. I think there are people who are trying to keep us down in here. And they're usually these people in these 1% communities that are controlling and calling the shots on a global scale. So that has to go. And they're gonna be forced to let go at some point because they were never designed to be the handlers or the gatekeepers. That was never their job. They've overstepped their bounds on so many levels when you look at the evolution. And it has been a disservice to people because they've taught them for centuries the wrong information over and over again. So it's not like, oh, they're so hostile. Well, what have they been taught? It's social engineering, excuse me. So when you look at it on that level, they've never been taught the right keys and codes to their own evolution. But if you change the frequency, and you know this through meditation, if you're around a higher field of energy, your state of consciousness will come up immediately. The vibration, every cell, every atom, the molecular structure, everything changes and phases into a higher field, and your consciousness gets pure. There's none of the drama. It all falls away. So I'm a firm believer that we can certainly step up and ascend into it, and I don't think we can be contained anymore. So that hostility aspect, yeah, there's a lot of people here who are what I call entity controlled, and they're probably not going to make it. But the other ones, we're going home. We're going to break orbit. That's just me.
Okay.
But I know we're going to do it. I'm going to make sure we do it. Whether I leave this world and open the gateway or not, we're going.
I think, too, I want to put out there that the best book out there on understanding getting to that place inside of yourself is your book, Transmutation Through Ascension, Soul of the Sun. It's my favorite book.
You're so sweet.
And
thank you. You always say that. But thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, I have to say it because I steal from it on a very regular basis.
I give you permission. I'm honored anyway. I'm very honored.
I mean, I tell everybody. I do tell everybody that I steal it from you, but it's a wonderful textbook, and it's not 400 million pages long, so it's a workable type of book, and it's so well done, and it's so well outlined, and it takes you step by step by step by step. And if you're beginning, if you're looking for some genuine material on evolution and the soul growing and evolving, this is a perfect book.
Well, thank you. Okay. I think it is too. Without humbly said, but yeah, it's a good one for people to get started.
Well, you put it out in 2004, I think.
Mhm. Yeah, it was my first book I ever wrote. Yeah.
And usually the first book somebody writes is not necessarily their best. And I've read all your books, but this is my favorite. And I think because it's so basic and it puts things out there for people to be able to utilize and to work from and to grow from. And I think that the other thing really important is this isn't an overnight process. Certainly it's a journey, and you can, there are places where you can see that there's been growth and there's been, other things happening, but ascension of the soul is a lifetime's journey. And and it's and if you ascending, beyond the earth plane, it's just the first step in a great big staircase. I mean, there's lots of places to go and lots of things to do, but it's a wonderful book to give you a foundation to work from, and I totally loved it, clearly.
Well, thank you.
I don't get a kickback either, so
check's in the mail.
No. I think when somebody raves about somebody else's work and doesn't get or expect anything in return, that says something.
It does.
You definitely have done a good job with that, for sure.
Well, thank you.
But no, we are. I think that looking for honesty and sincerity and trust and love in all aspects of life is something we're all working on. Some a little bit more than others, but we're all working on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I know that we move in. Everybody has their own pathway. Everybody has their own journey, and everybody's pathway is different because everybody's in a different place in evolution of their soul and their spirit. So, I mean, if you can have tools that you can move along no matter where you are, and that's what your book does. I think that, it's sort of like people will look at you and say, I want to be like you. And if they did everything in their life the way you've done in your life, they would never come to the same place you are. Everybody has to understand that. Everybody's journey is different. I mean, we are going to the same place, but we're doing it in a different way, and everybody's at a different place in evolution. It doesn't mean that anybody's higher than anybody else. It's just a different place. I mean, you could be here working on one aspect, and I'm here on working at a different aspect, and it's not, there's not a hierarchy. There's not, I'm more evolved than you are. I think somebody once said to me, how do I know where I am in evolution? Because I think I'm more evolved than my husband or whatever. And I said to her, the only way I can actually tell you where you are in evolution is when you die, pretend you're going into an elevator and quick look up and see what floor you're on. And just hope you're not on the basement.
Yeah, no kidding. I don't like elevators. Oh. Not my thing.
Well, it's really, it's for some people, I know a lot of people that say, oh, I'm on the first heaven level, or I'm on the seventh level of the third ray of the fourth, whatever. I mean, it means nothing. And if you're trying to give yourself a leg up on somebody else, it means something. It means you're not as evolved as you think you are. I've often said, if somebody asked me, I would say, well, I always kind of figure that I am not as evolved as a blade of grass, and that way there's nowhere to go but up. So it's just there are no levels. It's evolution.
Yeah, stream of consciousness is pure energy, pure light. It's pretty simplistic on a lot of different levels.
But so many people, there's an ego thing here. I'm on the purple ray, you're on the pink ray.
Yeah. There's the I am God syndrome too that goes on once in a while. They get over that soon. That's part of the ego thing that drops. But yeah, I call those like the newbie people who get start doing the spiritual work and they start getting Kundalini hits and all of a sudden they're the ascended master. Well, it does put them in the field of higher consciousness that they have to hold the field and then they surrender and keep going and evolving and just realize that everything is a stream of energy and higher consciousness. So you'll get it.
I had a meditation group for 17 years, and one of the guys came in one night and he said, I need to sit on a walnut. And I said, why? And he said, I just did a Kundalini rising workshop, and I have to sit on a walnut so it stays open. And I said, all I have is some mixed nuts. We'll put them in a little bag for you to sit on.
That's crazy. Oh my goodness.
But some people really go through those workshops and feel that and I said to him, just you can't. I would be surprised if it stays wherever it is they put it, because the Kundalini will rise when it's ready and not 1 second before. And I said, I don't think there's any way you can turn a switch and have it flare up through your body. I mean, might be able to, but it will still sink back to wherever it's supposed to be.
And it doesn't work like that. The description alone, it's the serpent energy too. Doesn't make sense. I don't know. I don't get started in that, but yeah. Some people just don't get the right data. They get misrepresentation of the material.
They're trying. They're so sincere. They so want. They so want to do it and do it right. And I don't know. There may be a teacher out there that can do it, but in my opinion, if you're paying a fortune for a workshop that's guaranteeing you they're going to take you into the fifth dimension, chances are the only thing you're going to be taken into is a bank account that's a lot lighter than it was when you started.
Well, it's multidimensional for one. And fifth dimension, everybody still talks about the fifth dimension. I don't understand that, but we're in multidimensional space.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
But it sounds impressive. It's like 5G. I have no idea what 5G is. But it's an energy.
You don't want to know.
No, I don't. But it's sort of like, they throw titles out there and you go, ooh, what does that mean? And if you want to work with vibrational stuff, use solfeggio music. That's vibrational music on different levels that helps you to access different aspects of your body and your evolution. But you'll do the work. And again, it's like we've been saying all along, you'll do the work. And
sometimes facilitators are necessary. I can tell you that right now, for the osmosis effect and to assist on the timeline. Definitely. I mean, you can do so much with yourself, but at some point there's a teacher involved, in my opinion, or someone there, a guide, a teacher,
always.
Somebody. Yeah.
And sometimes that teacher is the person you would least suspect. all of these master teachers that are out there, they do not all come with a halo and a white robe. So
No, I don't think they're supposed to, though, and I think it's a red flag when they pretend to be perfect also, so that's something I look at. Yeah.
Well, we're here to learn from our mistakes, and if you aren't making mistakes, then you aren't growing. I mean, some people overdo it a bit, but it's, our challenges are what make us grow and evolve and come to higher levels and higher realms. It's exciting. I just noticed our time.
It went by fast.
We have definitely covered the tabernacle and the wilderness.
Yes, we did. Great show, Barbara. Thank you for joining me tonight.
Oh, God, it's always such a pleasure, and it's your pick next time.
Oh, great. I'll look. Okay.
Yeah, peruse the book.
Okay.
And if you want to pick something like past lives or something else, just to take a break, we can do that too. Whatever you want to do.
Yeah, whatever you. That's fine. Yeah, I'll look into that too. Yeah, actually, that'd be kind of fun.
Oh yeah, that would be
Maybe
fun.
we can do that. Now that we put it out there.
Well, yeah, it's your choice. You want to give them your radio shows and stuff like that, and so they can find you?
Oh, sure. They can find me over there on Hyperspace at KCOR Digital Radio Network. That's on Friday nights at 12 midnight Eastern Time, 9 p.m. Pacific Time. Raven Star's Witching Hour at freedomslips.com on Saturday night, 12 midnight Eastern Time, 9 p.m. Pacific, and, of course, with you here on your lovely network each month on Twilight. On Nightlight.
So cool.
Network. It is fun, and I love it. And thank you.
Yeah.
It's
fun. Listen, I'm having trouble remembering that we are a network, and there are 5 or 6 of us that are doing shows on the network. So
very cool.
It's a great variety. But yeah, no, I think that actually your shows that you do on all the other channels are a little different than this. So you really are doing different things in different places, which is fascinating. And sometimes your shows are on a little late for me, but there's always archive.
It's too late for me too. I'm getting older. I think I'm getting 12 shows late night.
Well, it's I'm finding the same thing. I'm thinking, 9, 10 o'clock at night. That's we could do 5, 6 in the afternoon, and that wouldn't be bad at all. So
we can always switch it if you need to. I'm pretty flexible.
Oh no, so am I. It's
okay.
No, doing it at this time gives me time to read the material before we do the show.
I know, last minute, right? It's like a test.
Well, that way it's fresh in our minds. Come on.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. No, I agree.
But it's been really. This has been fun. I've had a great time tonight, and
Me too.
And I do thank you so much, and I thank everybody for listening. And we will be back the last Sunday of the month, same time, hopefully. If not, check my website out. The time will be on the website. Or you can follow the show on Blog Talk, and Blog Talk will let you know when the show is going to be happening. So thank you so much for everybody for listening. This will be up on YouTube tomorrow. Check it out. We covered a lot of territory. Take care, everybody. Stay well, stay happy, and stay focused. Good night now.